Om Namah Shivaya. Dear listeners of Shaivam.org, you are about to listen Spiritual Discourse. Title is Vedhantha versus Siddhantha. Presented by Shanmugavel. Thank you. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. Dear listeners, I am going to communicate with you some interesting and controversial subject. Before that, let me introduce myself. I am Shanmugavel, Professor of Siva Siddhantha, on behalf of Tiruvallur Adina, which is conducting Siva Siddhantha direct training centers all over Tamil Nadu from the year 1992. So on behalf of the Adinam, I am taking classes in various centers as Professor of Siva Siddhantha, and now for the listeners, I am going to present one important cassette. That cassette deals with Vedhantha versus Siddhantha, because as far as Indian philosophy is concerned, the Vedanta and philosophy Siddhanta are so prevalent and popular in India, but all will not understand the basic and intricate difference between the two philosophies. So with that great intention in mind, I want to present that interesting subject as far as my knowledge goes, and I hope that you will hear and appreciate this good subject. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். கோடாத வேதனுக்கு யான் செய் குற்றம் என், கோடாத வேதனுக்கு யான் செய் குற்றம் என், குண்டறிந்த தாடாடனே தென் தணிகை குமர, தென் தணிகை குமர, நின் தண்டையந்தாள் சூடாத சென்னியும் நாடாத கண்ணும் தொழாத கையும், சூடாத சென்னியும் நாடாத கண்ணும் தொழாத கையும், பாடாத நாவும் பாடாத நாவும் எனக்கே தெரிந்து படைத்தனனே. This invocation song was sung by Saint Arunagirinatha, which is a compilation called Kandar Alangaram. So with this invocation song, we will discuss today an important subject, Vedanta versus Siddhanta. The word versus I have intentionally used because the common man, or in the common world, everybody thinks Vedanta is opposed to Siddhanta and Siddhanta is opposed to Vedanta. Therefore, I have captioned the subject as Vedanta versus Siddhanta. And before venturing into the subject, we will see what is Vedanta. The etymological meaning for Vedanta is the end of the Veda. Anda means end. Vedanta means the end of the Vedas. And the other meaning is the quintessence or juice of the Vedas. And another meaning, the final part of the Veda. The fourth and final part of the Veda is called the Vedanta. Then we have to see what are all the earlier parts of the Veda. I will name them. The earlier part of the Veda, the first part of the Veda is called as Samhita, meaning in English as hymn collections. And the second part of the Veda is called Brahmanas, meaning in English as priestly manuals. And the third part of Veda is called Aranyakas, or meaning in English as forest treatises. And the fourth part of the Veda is called Upanishad. The meaning of the Upanishad is the enlightened discourses. So the enlightened discourses by whom? The enlightened discourses by rishis and saints about the intention, the purport and import of the Vedas. So they are called the enlightened discourses. So the Upanishad, otherwise called as Vedhantha, this is very clear. So the other word is called the siddhantha. But if you take the word siddhantha, you should not interpret the word as the end of the siddhas. The Vedanta means the end of the Veda. The siddhanta means the end of the siddhas. It is not correct. Because siddhanta, as we take, it is only one word. It is not a coinage of two words. So siddhanta means it is one of the aspects of Indian epistemology. The first part of the epistemology is called Vishaya, the second part is Samsaya, the third part is Purupaksha, and the fourth part is Siddhanta, and the fifth part is Sankati. Vishaya means the proposition, Samsaya means the doubt or objection. Then the Purupaksha, the third part is called the conclusion of the opposite parties. Then the fourth Siddhanta means the conclusion of the outside. Then the fifth part is called Sankati, or in English it is called appropriateness. So these 5 parts are the basic analysis of epistemology or logic or Indian philosophical system. So the Siddhanta word everybody can use. In common word we see, people say communist Siddhanta, the Mao Siddhanta. So all these philosophies, they are using the word Siddhanta. So Siddhanta means, it will go to mean only the conclusion of a pioneer who made a great research or service in the subject, and he has codified some formula that is called Siddhanta. But here, the Siddhanta in Indian philosophy will go to mean by gradually, even though the Siddhanta is an epistemological term. As far as Indian philosophy is concerned, this is used only to mean the Agamanta. Agamanta means the end of the Agamas. Vedanta means the end of the Veda, and Agamanta means the end of the Agamas. So, it is a substitution word. The Siddhanta is only a substitution word for Agamanta. That is, the conclusion or the quintessence of the Sivagamas, 28 in number, revealed by Lord Shiva. So now we have made the etymological meaning of these 2 words. The Vedanta means the end of the Veda, and Siddhanta means the end of the Agamas. So this is only the epistemology, this is only the what is called the etymological meaning. But now the common question, or a question which everybody is desirous to know, is there any contradiction between Vedanta and Siddhanta? Whether Vedanta is contradictory to Siddhanta, Siddhanta is contradictory to Vedanta. This is the only thing which we are going to analyze, because it is an ocean. Indian philosophy is concerned, it is an ocean. But today we are taking the subject whether the Vedanta and Siddhanta is contradictory to each other. That is the thing we are going to analyze today. Before venturing into the subject, we have to be very cautious, because before forming an opinion by ourselves, we must make sure what the siva saints of the earliest period, the great munis, the great rishis of the Saiva religion, the Saiva saints, what they have observed or what they have replied this question, whether Vedanta is opposed to Siddhanta. I will analyze, I will quote rather some of the sayings of Saiva saint. Saint Tirumular, you know, a great mystic poet and a saint. In Tamil Nadu, he lived for 3,000 years. Saint Tirumular is the greatest Siddha and a saint. That great Tirumular, in his great work called Thirumandiram, in verse 2397, the Tirumular says, the Vedas and Agamas were revelations of Lord Shiva. There is no contradiction between the Veda and the Agama. The Veda is a general treatise and the Agama is a special treatise, that is all. But there is nothing contradictory or nothing repugnancy is there. This is the observation of Saint Tirumular. Then another great saint of Tamil Nadu, Saint Umabadi Siva, a very great saint. He has done works both in Tamil and Sanskrit. He is a very great scientist. He is a great poet saint of Tamil Nadu. He has done a master work called Siva Prakasam. In that Siva Prakasam, verse number 7, he says, the Vedhantha is not opposed to siddhantha, or rather we can say, siddhantha is an elucidation of Vedhantha. Exactly as Vedanta Thelivam, in Tamil he observes. Vedanta Thelivam. That means it is only an elucidation of Vedanta is siddhanta. Then the great saint of Tamil Nadu, Saint Thayumanavar, he observes a real Siddha. He observes who is the real Siddha. He is asking a question, Saint Thayumanavar. Who is the real Siddha? A real Siddha is one who finds a compromise between Vedanta and Siddhanta. He is the real Siddha. A very peculiar definition by Saint Thayumanavar. A real Siddha is one who finds a compromise between Vedanta and Siddhanta. Then another great saint of Tamil Nadu, Saint Kumarakurvara Swamigal, the very good saint, belongs to the southern part of Tamil Nadu. In his work, great work, he has done so many works in Tamil, and one of the work is called Pandara Mummani Kovai. That is, the Pandara Mummani Kovai was composed in praise of his Guru. In verse number 11, he says very clearly, Vedanta is a fruit, but Siddhanta is a juice of the fruit. So it's a very peculiar definition given by Saint Kumarakurvara Swamigal. And another great scholar hailed from Sri Lanka. His name was Kasi Vasi Sendinatha Iyer. He was a great scholar both in English and Tamil and Sanskrit. So he is a veteran scholar of 3 languages. He has written a book called Saiva Vedhantha. That was published in the year 1920. The book is called Saiva Vedhantha. In that Saiva Vedhantha, he has clearly given so many quotations and so many authorities to prove that Vedanta is not opposed to Siddhanta. Then the other saints like Pamban Swamigal and Sivanyana Swamigal hail from Tamil Nadu, a great scholars of Tamil and Saivism. They have also asserted there is no contradiction between Vedanta and Siddhanta. Why I am telling all this? Before you come to a conclusion, we have to take the sayings of these great saints before arriving at our own conclusion. Otherwise, you will be miscarried. You will be miscarried somewhere. So you will be nowhere. So, the other question which we have to analyze is, then if it is so, if the saints of Tamil Nadu prove like that, why the common man is struggling? Vedanta is opposed to Siddhanta and Siddhanta is opposed to Vedanta. So where the dispute has actually arisen? What is the genesis of the dispute? So here I want to mention the word Vedanta in Indian philosophy will give two connotations. One is Vedanta will mean the 108 Upanishads or the Vedas. That is also called as Vedanta. And another thing which this word Vedanta denotes is, it will go to mean the Brahma Sutra authored by Saint Vyas. So now we have to come to the other aspect. We have to know some biodata about Saint Vyas. Vyas is a great saint belonging to India. He lived at the end of Dwapara Yuga. When Saint Vyas lived is a question. Actually, Saint Vyas lived at the end of the Dwapara Yuga. That means nearly 5,200 years ago. He was the son of a great rishi called Parasara Munivar. His father's name was Parasara Munivar and his mother's name was Satyavati. That Satyavati is otherwise called as Machakandi and also Parimalagandhi. So these are the three names of his mother. One is Satyavati, the second is Machakandi, the third is Parimalagandhi. So that was his mother. And the original name of Saint Vyas was Krishna Dvaibayana. That was the original name of Saint Vyas. And he was also called in Indian philosophy as Badarayana. Badarayana. That is also one of the names of Saint Vyas. And Saint Vyas had got 4 sons. The 4 sons. You are already familiar with the names of the son. One was Dhritarashtra. The second is Pandu. The third is Vithura. And the fourth is Sugha Brahma Maharishi. So these are the 4 sons which Saint Vyas begot. And the famous disciples of Saint Vyas were Sumandu, Jaimini, Pilar, and Vaisambhayana. These are the great disciples of Saint Vyas. The contribution of Vyas. Now we are analyzing the biodata of Vyas. What are the contributions of Vyas? His contribution is unequivocal, unparalleled. First, he had only classified the 4 Vedas. The Vedas were scattered and they were all compiled by Saint Vyas. Vyas is only a reasoning name. Vyas means one who has codified, one who has classified. So, he has classified the 4 Vedas. It is a great contribution in Indian philosophy. And the second thing is, he has classified the 18 Mahapuranas. The Mahapuranas are 18 in number. They were classified by Saint Vyas. That was his second contribution. Then he was the author of great epic Mahabharata. You all should have heard about Mahabharata. The Mahabharata was authored by Saint Vyas. And another master work of Saint Vyas was Hari Vamsa. That is the generations of the Hari. Therefore it is called as Hari Vamsa. Then the another contribution by Saint Vyas to the Indian philosophy was he had authored a book called Brahma Sutra. The Brahma Sutra is otherwise called as Vedhantha or Vedanta Sutras or Sariraka Sutras or Uttaramimamsa. These are all the other names of Brahma Sutra. The Brahma Sutra was a great work done by Saint Vyas. It has got 4 chapters, 156 adhikaranas and 555 aphorisms. So it's a great masterwork of Saint Vyas. But even though this book was very famous and so many people held those books as an authority, there is one deficiency also. That is, his Brahma Sutra was so brief as to be virtually unintelligible without a commentary. This is one of the deficiency for that work. Then, what was the result? Because of the Brahma Sutra composed by Saint Vyas, some confusion was there in the Indian philosophy. Because that book was taken as an authority by scholars, so many interpretations came into that book. So the famous commentators, the very great commentators who are called as Mahabhashyakaras in Indian philosophy, and they were the Nilakanda Sivacharya, the Sankaracharya, the Ramanujacharya, the Madhvacharya, and the Sayanacharya. These are the great 5 acharyas who gave an elaborate commentary, are called Bhashyam in Sanskrit. So they are called the Bhashyakaras. They are given an elaborate commentary for this Brahma Sutra. So all these commentaries came into existence. What was the result? Because different schools of thoughts and philosophy were established in Indian philosophy. So this was only a minus point for Saint Vyas. So after the advent of Vyas, as far as Indian philosophy is concerned, there was actually a revolution. A revolution has actually followed because the Indian saints, the philosophers and great scholars, they were divided into 2 groups. Those group which had accepted the authority of the Brahma Sutra, they are one group. And the other group was, they were opposing the Brahma Sutra. So, after the advent of Saint Vyas, the Indian philosophers were divided into 2 groups. Therefore, the word Vedanta was used to denote 2 things, or we can say 2 connotations for Vedanta. One is, Vedanta means the quintessence of 108 Upanishad. That is one interpretation. And the other interpretation is, it will go to mean the Brahma Sutra of Saint Vyas. So, the first one, that is the quintessence of Upanishad, it was named in Indian philosophy as Yognama. And the followers who held the Brahma Sutra as authority, they were classified as the second part, and that side of Vedanta was called as Rishi Nama. So it's a peculiarity in Indian philosophy. This Vedanta is used to connotate 2 things. One is the Yognama, the other one is the Rishi Nama. So accepting the interpretation of Saint Vyas is called Rishi Nama. So this impact among the scholars of Indian philosophy had got a very great impact in the Indian philosophy. So Indian philosophy was having a divided opinion. So all these works were authored in Sanskrit language. So the philosophers belonging to other Indian languages, the national languages, the Indian languages, so all the scholars who were proficient in Indian languages, they were also divided into 2 groups. One is those who accept the authority of the Brahma Sutra, and the other one is those who do not accept the authority of the Brahma Sutra. So, but our question now is, the Saiva saints belonging to Tamil Nadu, the very great saints, the very canonical saints and the metaphysical saints. All these saints, what they were having the opinion about Saint Vyas. Here the question is, all the Tamil saints, that is, the saints who authored the 14 metaphysical works of Saiva Siddhantha and the canonical works of Saiva Siddhantha, 12 in number, they all lined opposed to Saint Vyas. There is a peculiarity. So the Tamil Nadu saint, they did not accept the authority of the Brahma Sutra. But the impact in Sanskrit language had the side effect on all the Indian languages. So all the scholars belonging to various parts of India and various linguistic styles, they also followed, they also divided into two groups, and as far as Tamil Nadu was concerned, the Tamil scholars and saints who supported Saint Vyas, they also authored 16 books in Tamil. That is called the Vedhantha Shastras. And those who were opposed to Saint Vyas, they also composed, they also authored 14 Shastras. They are called as Siddhantha Shastras. So among the Siddhantha Shastras, the work of Saint Vaikundar was uppermost. And among the Vedanta Shastras, the Saint Thandavaraya Swamigal, he was a pioneer. So the magnum opus, in English it is called the magnum opus of Saint Vaikundar, was called as Sivajnana Bodham. And the magnum opus of Thandavaraya Swamigal was called Kaivalya Navanidam. So not only the single book, there are so many books who spoke the same philosophy, that is, the saints who followed Vaikundar's philosophy, they were called the Siddhanta saints. And those saints who followed the Thandavaraya Swamigal were called the Vedanta saints. So in Tamil also, we can understand what is Vedanta and what is Siddhanta in Tamil language also. So the next question we are going to analyze is the Tamil Saiva saint belonging to the Siddhanta Parambara, or who was opposed to Saint Vyas, were called Kailaya Parambara. Those Kailaya Parambara did not accept, the point to be borne in mind is, those saints who belong to the Kailaya Parambara did not accept the Brahma Sutra as the authority. This is the important point. But at the same time, they accepted the authority of the Upanishads. It's a very peculiar stand. They accepted the authority of the Upanishads, 108 in number, the fourth and final part of the Vedas. But at the same time, they did not accept Saint Vyas' interpretation called Brahma Sutra. So many words used in the Vedas, the Upanishads, were given a different interpretation in Indian philosophy. And one of the most controversial words was, or we can say, is what is called the climax in the controversy, was the word Advaita. This was a word used in major Upanishad. The word Advaita was used in Chandogya Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, and Svetasvara Upanishad, and Yajurveda. So, the word Advaita was used in different meaning. So, the semantics, what is called the interpretation, in English it is called the semantics of the word Advaita, was interpreted in two ways. One way is, Advaita means it denotes the existence of entities And the other interpretation for Advaita is, no, it does not mean the existence of entities.
Om Namah Shivaya. Dear listeners of Shaivam.org, you are about to listen Spiritual Discourse. Title is Vedhantha versus Siddhantha. Presented by Shanmugavel. Thank you. Om Namah Shivaya.
Actually, Advaita is used in the sense in relation to the entities. This is a major difference of opinion among the scholars. So, the great saint hailing from Tamil Nadu, Saint Thaimanavar, his remark is very wonderful. That is the interpretation for the Upanishad Advaita, the Upanishadic term Advaita, which is correct. Whether the interpretation given by Vedanta scholars or the interpretation given by Siddhanta scholars, which is correct. He was raising a question and he has given a very fine answer. His words are, I bow down to the lotus feet of Saint Meigandar who had given a right interpretation. The very eulogizing statement of Saint Thaimanavar. I will again repeat it. I bow down to the lotus feet of Saint Meigandar who had given a right interpretation. And another peculiarity in the words of Saint Thaimanavar is he did not eulogize Saint Vyas anywhere in his work. He was eulogizing so many Saiva saints, both from Sanskrit and Tamil Nadu, but never he eulogized Saint Vyas. This is a peculiarity of Saint Thaimanavar, going to mean the Siddhanta saints, they did not accept the superiority and authority of the Brahma Sutra. So, one sarcastic remark, one Englishman was very interested in Indian philosophy, and he began to read all the Indian philosophies and he made a very sarcastic remark. The remark is, the Indian genius is capable of giving 24 interpretations for a single word. A very sarcastic remark. The Western scholar, the opinion of Western scholar, so Indian genius is capable of giving 24 interpretations for a single word. So this was a very sarcastic remark given by the Western scholar. So now we come to understand. So the Brahma Sutra, authored by Saint Vyas, is not accepted as the authority and finality by Saiva Siddhanta saints of Tamil Nadu. They are otherwise called as Tirukailaya Guru Parambare. The tradition came from Mount Kailas, so it is called Tirukailaya Guru Parambare in Tamil. So the status of Saint Vyas. What is the actual status of Saint Vyas? So as far as Vedanta is concerned, Saint Vyas was held in high esteem by Vedanta rishis and saints. But as far as Siddhanta is concerned, the very peculiar stand taken by Siddhanta scholars. What is your opinion about Saint Vyas? If you ask this question to Siddhanta saint, their reply is, we do accept Saint Vyas as a rishi, but not a saint. So this is a very peculiar definition. Rishi, who is a rishi? According to Indian tradition, who is a rishi and who is a saint? This we have to know very correctly. A rishi means one he is capable of deciphering the Vedas. They are put in Lord Shiva in the cosmic potentiality. So that competent persons are called rishis. But saint is something different. Saint means one who is not reborn, he is only a saint. So the Vedanta scholar held the Saint Vyas as a rishi and a saint. The point to be borne in mind. But the Siddhanta scholar held Vyas only as a rishi and not a saint. So they do not accept the authority of the Brahma Sutra authored by Saint Vyas. So I want to quote one interesting anecdote in the Puranas, in the tradition of Indian philosophy. That is because that story is a very elaborate story. I am not going to the story. I am going to quote one important anecdote. That is, Saint Vyas committed perjury. Perjury is a very legal term. Perjury means telling a lie. Telling a lie by oath of affirmation. In law, lie is different from perjury. Lie is something else and perjury is something else. Perjury means you are telling a lie on oath of affirmation. That is perjury. So Saint Vyas committed perjury in the gracious presence of Lord Vishwanath of Kasi. This story was told in so many Puranas. So Vyas had committed perjury in the presence, the gracious presence of Lord Vishwanath at Kashi. So he was punished. Saint Vyas committed perjury and consequently he was punished by Adhigara Nandi, who cursed his hand tied up. So this is a peculiar anecdote in Indian philosophy. So we will now come to the other aspect of this question. So what the Siddhanta saints or the Siddhanta scholar, what is the stand taken by those saints as far as Vyas is concerned? I will narrate, I will give a gist of the Saiva Siddhanta saints' opinion. The first one, I will give only 4 evidences. One is the Brahma Sutra was not held to be an authority for jnana. So the magnum opus of Saint Vyas, the Brahma Sutra, was not held as an authority as far as Saiva saints are concerned. This is one thing. And the second thing is, no statue or no idol was allowed to be consecrated or installed inside the Saiva temple. This is a peculiarity in Indian philosophy, Indian temple. Nowhere in the Indian temple you can't see the statue of Saint Vyas or the statue, the idol of Saint Vyas was not allowed to be consecrated or installed in a Saiva temple. In Tamil Nadu also you cannot see the statue of Saint Vyas in any other Shiva temples. This is the second aspect. The third aspect was, no encomium was passed for Vyas by any of the Saiva saint. The very peculiar thing. But they were passing encomiums, the Saiva saints of Tamil Nadu especially, they passed so many encomiums against so many rishis belonging to India of ancient time. I will quote some of the rishis. Saint Agastya, Saint Parasara, Saint Vamadeva, Saint Brihu, Saint Tatisi, Saint Durvasa. These are all the great saints and rishis of ancient India. And all these rishis and saints were eulogized by Siddhanta scholars. But that equality and status was not given to Saint Vyas. You can read the Puranas and come to a conclusion whether I am saying a truth or a lie. Actually, so these very 4 aspects, that is, as far as the Vedhantha or the Brahma Sutra of Saint Vyas, what was the stand, what was the status by Saiva saint, I will narrate, I will tell again what are all the specialities they were holding against Saint Vyas. First one is, they did not hold the magnum opus of Saint Vyas the Brahma Sutra, the Sariraka Sutra, or the Vedanta Sutra, as it is called. They did not accept the authority of that book. That's first thing. Second thing, no statue or idol was allowed to be installed or consecrated in any other Saiva temple in Tamil Nadu, rather in India. Then the third one is, no encomium was passed by any other Saiva saint for Saint Vyas. And the fourth one is, Saint Vyas was not held in equality to Rishi Agastya, Rishi Parasara, Rishi Vamadeva, Rishi Bhrigu, Rishi Durvasa, Rishi Tatisi. These are the great saints and rishis. So, Vedanta and Siddhanta, we can come to a conclusion. The Vedanta is concerned, the Vedanta scholars and saints were giving equal weight to Brahma Sutra and the Upanishad. This is the conclusion of my speech. You have to listen very, very carefully. So, according to Vedanta, and Vedanta saying, equal status, equal weight is given to Brahma Sutra as well as the 108 Upanishad. But as far as Siddhanta is concerned, here we take a different stand. The Siddhanta scholars and saints, they held the Upanishad 108 in number as authority. But they did not hold Saint Vyasa's work, the Brahma Sutra, as authority. And not only that, the Saiva saints, the Siddhanta scholars and saints, they were raising actually an allegation against Saint Vyasa. That is a very important thing. They were raising some allegation. I will name two of the allegations. The allegation of Saiva saint against Saint Vyasa. The first allegation is the Brahma Sutra was not composed in clarity. It is unintelligible. It is ambiguous. It is misleading. These are all the allegations by Saiva saints against Vyasa. You again hear the Brahma Sutra is unintelligible. It is ambiguous. It is misleading. The second one is because the Brahma Sutra was susceptible of so many interpretations, it has given the way that so many differing schools of thought were established in Indian philosophy. Because of the Brahma Sutra only, so many Indian philosophies completely diametrically opposite in stature. They came into existence in India because it is only due to the misleading interpretation, the ambiguous interpretation, the unintelligible interpretations of Saint Vyasa. So many philosophies and so many different schools of thought came in Indian philosophy. So these are the two allegations which Saiva saints were raising against Saint Vyasa. So we will come to a conclusion. Then I will give another explanation for the Upanishad. Upanishad etymologically will mean Upa, Ni, Shat. The coinage of three words. Upa. Upa means near. Shat means sitting. Ni means under. So the etymological meaning for Upanishad is sitting under a competent guru. This is the etymological meaning for Upanishad. Upa, Ni, Shat. The coinage of three words. Upa means near, Shat means sitting, Ni means under or beneath. So this is the etymological meaning. But actually, Upanishad means the fourth and final part of the Vedas, expounding the secret, mystic, philosophical meaning of the Vedic hymns. They are the philosophical chronicles of Rishi, expounding the nature of God, the nature of soul, the nature of the cosmos. They were exquisite rendering of the deepest Hindu thought. This was a comment given by Saint Siva Subramani of United States. He was only telling like this. These words were quoted by Saint Siva Subramani of the Siva Siddhantha Church, Hawaii Island, United States. He has only observed like this. So Upanishads were held to be an authority. So the Saivas saying they also held the 108 Upanishad as authority, but the interpretation for these Upanishads were completely different from the interpretation given by Vedanta scholars. So, if you keep all these things in your mind and you make a sincere analysis, you will come to the conclusion why our saints of Tamil Nadu have proclaimed like this, they have avowed like this, they have clearly and categorically they have avowed in their works in Tamil, Vedanta Tedivan Saiva Siddhantha. So Siddhanta is only an elucidation of Vedanta and not contradictory or repugnant to the Vedanta. So these are all the sayings of great scholars and saints of Tamil Nadu. At the introductory speech, I quoted their name, Saint Tirumular, Saint Umavadi Sivam. The Umavadi Sivam is held to be a high interpreter. He is a very great scholar. And these Umavadi Sivam's works were greatly appreciated by Dr. G.U. Pope, who came from United Kingdom. So he at one place he says, Saint Umapati is the ablest Siddhanta schoolman. This was an encomium passed by Dr. G.U. Pope, who came from United Kingdom. He was very fond of this Umavadi Sivam, so he was very clear in telling that Umavadi Sivam was the ablest Siddhanta schoolman. And another saint, Taimanavar, he said, he is a real Siddha, he is one who finds a compromise between the Vedanta and Siddhanta. And Saint Kumaraguru Swamigal, I already told, Vedanta is like a fruit and Siddhanta is like a juice. Then where the question of controversy can arise? And the great saints of Tamil Nadu, Pamban Swamigal, Sivanyana Swamigal, and so many saints of Tamil Nadu, they have also asserted very clearly that the Upanishad is not opposed to the Agamas. So the Veda and Agama both were revelations of Lord Shiva. But the only difference is Veda was intended for a common man. But whereas Agama was intended for a man who was longing to get liberation from the chain of birth. So that was the interpretation. Therefore Saint Manikavasaka in his Thiruvasaram has clearly told, Agamam Aginindu Annipan Thalvalga. A very clear and categorical statement Saint Manikavasaka in Tamil. As far as Vedanta is concerned, it tells Vedangal Ayyayana Ongi Aldu Ahanda Nunniyan. The very day Lord Shiva comes very nearer if you approach him through Agama. So the Manikavasaka is telling in his Thiruvasagam, Agamam Aginindu Annipan Thalvalga. So the Vedas and Agamas, though they were revelations of Lord Shiva, the Agama is only a final authority which a soul is expected to move towards Lord Shiva. But Veda will give only the worldly and mundane benefits. It will never bestow jnana. But the Agama will give jnana. And the soul is attracted towards Lord Shiva. So this is the findings of the great scholars of Tamil Nadu. Therefore, we have to come to a conclusion. My earlier question is whether Vedanta is opposed to Siddhanta and Siddhanta is opposed to Vedanta. Actually, they are not opposed to each other. Then what will be? Means Vedanta will go to mean, if it go to mean the Upanishad, there is no contradiction. If you take Vedanta in other set, the Brahma Sutra, if you hold Vedanta as the Brahma Sutra of Saint Vyas, it is opposed to the Siddhanta. So, with this conclusion, I think my speech on this controversial and very interesting. The subject is really one aspect is very controversial, and the other aspect it is very interesting also. As a philosopher, a man who is really interested in Indian philosophy is expected to know the difference between Vedanta and Siddhanta. And dear listeners, finally I want to summarize one important thing. If you analyze and examine this subject, you should not see that it is a fight between two words, Vedanta and Siddhanta. Actually, you should not deem it is a fight between words. Actually, it is a fight between philosophies and metaphysics. That is very, very important. As a common man will not understand all these implications. But Indian philosophy is very clear. Mere analyzing the God is not complete with the philosophy. So a real philosophy and a comprehensive philosophy must contain three aspects. One is, what is its opinion and philosophy and metaphysics about the world? And secondly, what is the metaphysics about the soul? And thirdly, what is the metaphysics about God? So without containing these three aspects, a philosophy is not complete. Or I can say in English, the opinion or philosophy about the world that we live in, we enjoy, or what is called the phenomenal world, in English it is called, the world which we enjoy, the world which we experience. So the philosophy should contain what is the world you are enjoying. The world has emanated from what? These are all the things to be told in the philosophy. Otherwise it is not a philosophy. So in English it is called cosmology. The metaphysics about the world is called cosmology. Then the other thing, what is your opinion about the soul? Whether it is real, it is actually existing, whether it is eternal, whether it was reborn, whether it was previously existing, what is the final, the ultimate destination. All these things about the soul must be clearly told. In English it is called ontology. And the third aspect is the metaphysics about God. So that is called in English as theology. So a real philosophy must examine, will make a research about these three aspects. So the research into the world is called cosmology. The research into the soul is called ontology. The research into the God is called theology or theodicy in English. So a real philosophy must contain a clear-cut definition, a clear-cut metaphysics about three things. So they are called a real philosophy. So the Vedanta also tells and summarizes the three aspects. The Siddhanta also tells, explains, elucidates all the three aspects. That is the cosmology, the ontology and the theology. So even Tirukkural, for take it for granted. So the reading a Tirukkural from the literary aspect is something different. Reading the Tirukkural from the philosophical aspect is entirely different. Therefore, the great Dr. G. Pope, in his work, The Ethics of Quran, Saint Pope, G. Pope, who came from the United Kingdom as a missionary, he has written an elaborate commentary and translation for Tirukkural. That work is called The Ethics of Quran by Thiruvalluvar Nayanar. So Dr. G. Pope holds Thiruvalluvar only as a siva saint. Thiruvalluvar is not depicted as a poet by D. Pope. D. Pope considered Thiruvalluvar as a siva saint. So therefore, he has captioned his work as The Ethics of Kural by Thiruvalluvar Nayanar. The very words written by D. Pope. Not only that, about Thirukural, he has mentioned very clearly why the Thiruvalluvar was so famous and so popular. To this important question, Pope is giving a different and entirely unthinkable answer. That is, he gives Thiruvalluvar bases his ethics on the grand truths of Tripadhartha, Padi Pasu Pasam. His creed is not a godless creed as that of the Jains or Buddhists. And in this respect, I find a great disparity between his work and Naudadiya. So this is a comment given by Dr. G. Pope about Thirukural. So from philosophical point of view, Pope is seeing Thirukural as a philosophic work and not a literary work and not an ethical work even. So viewing a book from the philosophical aspect is entirely different. So Vedhantha and Siddhantha mean you should not consider it is merely a fight between these two words. It is a philosophy, a fight between two different kinds of philosophy. Now that is the real meaning, Vedhantha and Siddhantha. Therefore, I want to conclude that as a real and sincere students of philosophy, we are expected to follow the actual philosophy and metaphysics that is conveyed by the saint in their great work. So in that respect, if you view these things from the proper perspective, you will conclude that this is really a fight between the two theories and two theologies and two philosophies, and it is not a fight between two words. So this is the point I want to emphasize, because this is not a subject for entertainment. This subject we are not considering as an entertainment or not for otherwise. It is really a philosophy. If a man is expected to enter into philosophy because to elevate his soul, not for worldly benefits. So from that point of view, you have to view this great subject. I think I have presented this subject in an unmistakable and unambiguous way. I think you will appreciate that this is really a subject which everybody should know and should understand. Because if you understand a subject, it is not wrong if you understand it not properly. But it is wrong if you misunderstand the subject. So, not understanding is not a sin, but misunderstanding is a sin. So, on that aspect, these subjects should be viewed very clearly, and it's my humble opinion that this subject I have presented in a lucid and explainable manner, and I think you will appreciate its grandeur of the subject, the presentation, and other things, and I take leave from all the Siva listeners who are very patiently hearing this great work. Not my speech is not great, but the subject is great. That is very important. You should not see that I am a great man or my speech is a great one, but the subject I dealt with is a great one. So with that sense, you will take it in the right sense and appreciate it. Dear Siva scholars and Siva servitors, finally I want to emphasize one thing, and I beseech the gracious presence and blessings of Lord Shiva be showered upon all of the people who are carefully listening to this cassette. And I prostrate before the lotus feet of my Guru, the 23rd Pontiff of Tiruvavaduthurai Adinam, who comes in the lineage of Kailaya Parambara. The present Pontiff, Srila Sri Sivapradasa Desika Brahmacharya Swamigal, is my Guru, and he was the great force that has dragged me into this field and the guiding spirit behind me. And also I beseech his blessings to all the devotees, scholars and servitors of Saivism all over the world be showered with Guru Varul and Thiruvarul. And finally, I want to emphasize that listening to this cassette is not complete. If you make a deep study of the tenets and the metaphysics of siddhantha from a competent guru, either in Tamil or in English or some known languages, and we have to equip ourselves with the greatness and the philosophy of this great work, the lineage given by the saints of Kailaya Parampara. And I prostrate before my Guru, the 23rd Pontiff, who is now ruling over the great Adinam, Tiruvadurai Adinam in Tamil Nadu, which comes in the Kailaya Parampara, the great Kailaya Parampara. So with this, I take leave from all the devotees. And the traditional song of our Kailaya Parampara, I am going to sing and conclude. Kailaya Parampara Sivanyana Bodhanerigatum Vennai Payilvai Mirandan Sandarikor Minyana Banuagi Kuilarum Mudittiruva Vadurai Guru Namachivaya Devan Sairadi Marabudayon Tilmarabu Niludi Tadaikamado Ariru Tarandol Valge Arumugam Valga Vetpai Urusai Tanivel Valge Kukudam Valga Seve ஏறிய மஞ்சை வாழ்க யானைதன் நனங்கு வாழ்க மாறிலா வள்ளி வாழ்க வாழ்க சீரடியார் எல்லாம் மாறிலா வள்ளி வாழ்க வாழ்க சீரடியார் எல்லாம் மாறிலா வள்ளி வாழ்க வாழ்க சீரடியார் எல்லாம். பார்வதி பதையே ஹர மகாதேவ்.